Audio testing. Hello my fellow haunts, and welcome back to another modded Minecraft stream where I shall be continuing work on my base with a few goals for this stream. Today is going to be the start of wrapping up the first phase of streams here and planning the foundations for the next, in which I shall be building an occult type of village in this kind of biome behind me here. So some world exploring and foundations is the main thing for today, amongst other things. It is necessary for me to note that this is a pre-explored seed for the new people here, and I have also recently updated my launcher. So the world map here is going to look a bit different than as to how it did in previous streams. But without further ado, let us just get tucked into today's content. So for the first main task today, or first task that I'm going to do, is go this direction in for about 750 blocks in order to find some cypress trees, because I really like the colour that those particular trees have in terms of the planks, in terms of the planks, which I think will be very good for my future builds of kind of occultism, like a little ghost diorama and stuff. And I've got my first mob drop from my farm, which you can hear working away in there. That is absolutely fantastic to see that that is going. Anyways, back on track here. And I'm on that screen. Wonderful. So continuing as I do with my little niche here, the first of two videos that I will be discussing today is 5 creepy and mysterious paranormal events to give you goosebumps by the channel Top 5s, which contains a, well, total of 5 different stories and sections within it, all pertaining to the paranormal. The third one of which is the one that's about folklore, and in turn is one that I'm going to record my discussion for and later include in some kind of stream highlights type video that I intend to do. So the first story as present within Top's video here is just simply a viewer submitted story which takes place in Tasmania and a particular area of that country called Hobart. So as I said, this is a viewer submitted story and it was sent in by somebody called Chris, who is looking through bits of history in regards to the country. Oh, that's interesting. 2 full tall sugar canes there, that's unusual. But Chris, who is looking through bits of history of the country, came across a place called Roxborough House, which was built in 1820. It was built in this year and it was intended for residency. However, time wasn't kind to the building, and eventually, instead of its residential okay, Dalek, that was weird. There's a bit of a ghost for the stream. Time wasn't kind to the development of Roxborough House, and instead of it becoming a residential building of some description, it became a hotel in the 1830s, where it eventually fell into disrepair. It in turn garnered the nickname Rat's Castle because of what happened to it and events that started to transpire within it. Namely, homeless people started living in the kind of now wreck of the hotel that it became, and also 2 babies died during this kind of same period of time with regards to the building, unfortunately. The site itself was demolished in 1879 and was sold. A new building kind of emerged from the new Roxborough House that was built after the demolishment, and this new building became a college for a period of time. And come on, there we go. It became a college for a period of time, and today it has been converted into apartments, at least at the time of that particular video. So when researching the history of the area, Chris came across a photo before the demolishing in the late 1800s of the house, and it's for the most part a very ordinary photograph. You see the kind of building in abject ruin within the photograph, and that is the main kind of focus, but there are other kind of details peppered in it, one of which being that there are people scattered in and about within the photo. There's a couple people just kind of minding their own business on the ground outside of the building itself, and there's also one you can see a bit higher up in the building, kind of many floors up. However, the really interesting part of this photo and what have you is that in the doorway there is a very smudge-like kind of formation, I would describe it, in the doorway, which looks a lot like a person, and which looks a lot like a person, and in turn is presented in this video and this overall story like it is a possible ghost photograph. Now, it's an interesting photograph to kind of look at and gauge overall, I would have said, because you have comparisons within it in regards to, you can see actual humans, shall we say, being photographed within, and you can compare them to the figure and what have you, and kind of see differences between them all, and you can most definitely tell that the apparition, quote unquote, is definitely human-like in its kind of construction. However, there are other explanations than it being a ghost, which many will kind of point at as an actual explanation for the photograph. One being that it is just some odd smudges within the photograph itself that so happen to form into this kind of coincidental formation of a figure or some kind of apparition. And that forest is going to burn down. Great. What was I saying? So there are obviously many other kind of points and what have you people can point towards and in turn explain this photo away as, namely coincidental smudging of the photograph, in turn leading to it looking like an apparition or a ghost of some kind. Which in of itself is a case of, as I've noted in my notes here, a case of pareidolia, as it is called, which is where you basically have formations of elements in a piece of photography or video that kind of combine together and make it seem like that there is something there which there isn't, if that makes sense, which is most likely what this photograph is. It's most likely just a case of pareidolia that has so happened to form perfectly into this apparition, shall we say, which is a coincidence, and yes, theoretically an unlikely one, but it is something that has been known to have happened in the realms of the paranormal in the past, and in turn is nothing new, but it is the likeliest explanation for whatever this photograph showcases. And Top5s concludes the kind of section saying that the photograph itself is not a fake, and that that also there is very little information out there pertaining to both the building mentioned, Roxburgh House, as well as the photograph itself. So it ultimately concludes as one kind of mysterious conclusive piece for the video, I would have said, is the best way of describing it. See, do I have another terrain eater lying about? I swear I did have one somewhere. There he is. Gonna need you. Do I still have that anvil about? No, I don't. Anyways, so things do ramp up a bit in this video with regards to, especially with regards to the next one here, which is simply called the Demon of Brownsville Road. So this person by the name of Bob has had a fascination, or had a fascination, for this particular house on this particular street for many years, and eventually was fortunate enough to be able to buy it, and he was thinking of his family in regards to buying it for them to move in here. So when measuring up the house and getting all of the measurements down and planning it and what have you, planning their move, they found a son of theirs ended up disappearing during this event, and eventually they were found crying and hyperventilating by a staircase, proclaiming to have been terrorized, for lack of a good phrasing, by some kind of unseen thing, as it is put within Top's video here. Now, as I've kind of detailed in the past with the nukes video that I discussed in the previous stream, which was top 10 scary videos to make you throw your phone, kids can be very sensitive, shall we say. They can be a very sensitive bunch, to say the least, and it's theorized that they can easily be more susceptible to supernatural forces over the years. So what this kid has seen is, you know, kind of a mystery, I guess you could say, in terms of did it actually happen or what have you. But it's worth noting that the overall rest of what there is in the story does correlate pretty heavily within the overall story here, or at least is kind of a good setup and forewarning as to what is to come with this particular story. Then it's said that at some point after this incident with their child, they were assured that nothing was wrong with the house, either by the previous owners or the kind of tenant or retailer that sold them the particular house. although they received a funny response to Bob in hindsight, that the house frequently had Catholic masses performed within the house itself, which is a very unusual detail to have been mentioned when asking the question, is this house okay? So when moved in the 1980s, Bob's wife became discomforted with the house. The family realised that they were not alone, and the first kind of phenomena that is documented and discussed within the video here is that a closet light, I believe it was detailed as, or a light in the basement, would behave strangely in that it was one of those ones where it was suspended on a cable from the ceiling, and they would often go down there to find that the light itself was completely twisted around the cable of the light, to find that the complete structure, shall we say, of the light and what have you was completely twisted and coiled up. And they would fix this many times only for it to revert back to this kind of odd status that they would often find the light in this particular area of their house. As well as this funny sort of event going on and what have you, other lights in the house decided to turn on by themselves, and Bobby Jr. refused to sleep in his bedroom for whatever reason, instead deciding to sleep in a closet with the lights on instead for whatever reason. Now, as if this wasn't scary and unusual enough, the story itself does a bit of a full circle here and kind of loops back into what I detailed earlier of how Bob contacted somebody to see if the house was okay, and they had the relayance of information that a lot of Catholic masses occurred within the building itself. How this all kind of circles back into that is that they ended up finding bent crucifixes in points and parts of the house. And one day, Bob, our main character, found a box of religious items buried in the yard. At this point, the previous owners were called, and they were told, this was being told by the previous owners here, just to leave those artifacts alone for some undetermined and unelaborated reason by these people. The activity then escalated at the turn of the millennium, mainly in regards to the humans in the house, with regards to, what shall I say, is subject matters of mental instability, domestic violence, and even the police getting involved at one point. It was at this point that Bob contacted a Catholic minister, and in turn and later wrote and released a book on his true story, true in quotation marks, Bob would later contact Bob later contacted a Catholic church minister and wrote and released a book on the whole ordeal, which eventually was published and released in 2014. The publication itself, which is called The Demon of Brownsville Road, received acclaim, and Bob's backstory as a public official for some added credence to the whole thing being real. Although there was some critical disagreement, shall we say, as documented within Top5's video here, basically stating that the previous owners of the house read parts of Bob's book and declared it as exaggerated and overly elaborated, I believe, with in turn some people, with those people saying that some parts of the book were overly elaborated and overly kind of exaggerated, shall we say, and that some parts of it were not true. So there is that bit of discrepancy there with regards to the critical reception to the book and how people perceived it. Then things all started to go a bit pear-shaped for Bob, sadly. Their son, or a son rather, died unexpectedly, and their wife and their marriage dissolved, which was also an event that followed their wife becoming depressed for whatever reason. Overall, I find this a really interesting story overall, I would have said, and in quite a few regards I see it as something fairly similar to The Exorcist, I would have said, in the whole kind of Catholic Church kind of aspect to it all and what have you, I guess you could say, except there is no kind of possessions or anything like that, or children saying heinous things to their parents. And overall, I find it a very interesting story, I would have said personally, very engrossing, and it does make me want to seek out this particular book that Bob wrote and released on the whole shebang at some point, as I do enjoy reading these kinds of books on esoterical stuff. And yeah, overall a very interesting book, a very interesting story, I would have said overall, and it just feels like something out of a movie, I would have said. So the third story that is prevalent within this particular video by Top5 here is I believe a famous piece of Japanese folklore that goes by the name of Teke Teke. And admittedly, I have had to admittedly, within this particular iteration of telling the story through a relaying of what was described to me by Top5's video, this is a watering down of the story to some degree, because it is a very graphic story overall, as described by Tops5 here. So if you want to know the full story of Teke Teke as described by Top5s, I would recommend checking out the video, of which you can see the title of and the kind of bottom left down here during the stream, or whenever I upload this particular clip as a highlight, as I will do eventually and intend to do. So, according to legend, in Japan, a woman was assaulted by officers during World War II. During this commotion, she ended up falling onto some train tracks, and she was unfortunately hit by a train and split in half. And they did eventually pass away after a long interim of the accident and their eventual very unfortunate death. Do also grab these. The story overall became a piece of folklore, and the Teke Teke, as it is called, is said to haunt train stations of this country. The phantom itself is described as having no lower half, carries a scythe, and uses their long fingernails to drag themselves around along the ground, as they have no legs to walk. And this is how and why they're called the Teke Teke, because that is the sound that they apparently make when transporting themselves, or rather dragging themselves on the ground with their fingernails. And a piece of lore adjacent to this story and what have you is that in bathrooms, I'm assuming bathrooms of train stations and what have you, it is likely and possible that somebody will encounter the ghost of Teke Teke in a mirror. And if you encounter her in this particular scenario, she will ask you questions. And if you don't appease her when questioned by her, and you will be questioned by her. See, where did that other sapling go? No, I'm busy with mine, that's okay. And you are asked questions by her, and if for some reason you do not appease her or satisfy her with your answers to her questions, she will kill you. And this overall urban legend became eventually served the basis for two movies, one being a first movie and the second movie being a sequel to the movie, and which were released both in 2009 and are some known movies within the J-horror genre, although arguably probably not as well known as the likes of Ringu or One Missed Call or The Grudge, as I previously talked about in my last live stream, wherein I mentioned those movies within that, namely Ringu and One Missed Call, whenever talking about a particular Nuke'sTop5s video and section, which is the one by the content creator Il Cublo, wherein they investigated a supposedly haunted house in Mexico. And overall, I find this a really fascinating and interesting story to kind of explore and listen to, I would have said, because, as again I have previously detailed in a couple of different parts of this channel, as well as on my other channels on YouTube in the past, for me, train stations act as a pretty incredible setting for a ghost story, I would have said, because train stations overall are a very ancient part of civilization, and a lot of them have been around for many decades, some even hundreds of years, I'm sure. So with that kind of history and what have you bestowed upon such a location such as this, it makes it very ripe for ghost stories, I would have said, overall, and kind of makes for a very fitting and perfect locale for a ghost story, just given the amount of history that a fixture such as this can have. And also with regards to what kind of purposes these were used for, such as some in London, namely Bethnal Green, if I'm right, was used as a World War II air raid bunker, I believe, or kind of refuge for people during World War II. So kind of combining that great setting for ghost stories, I would have said, a train station, plus the ever special kind of folklore and very unique and creepy ghost stories that Japan has, just makes overall for a very fascinating and creepy and intriguing ghost story overall, I would have said. And I think at some point I will seek out a DVD or something like that, if there is one, of the two Teke Teke movies that were released in 2009, because I believe I have seen a picture of one online, so I think at some point I will check out or try and get a copy of these movies and watch them and enjoy them, because I do love a good ghost story, as you guys can probably tell. So progressing onwards now, further on into this Progressing now further onwards within this top 5s video is the penultimate story as present within this particular video, which is entitled The Ghosts of Petite Trianon. So the story as described by Tops 5 here, or as described by Top 5s here, and as recounted by me the best I can, is that two women travel to France in the early 1900s, and they wanted to visit a small chateau owned by Mary Antoinette, which was closed, this being the titular Petite Trianon. After discovering that this building they wanted to visit was closed, they kept walking and ended up getting lost. They came across an old farmhouse, or one of them saw an old farmhouse, it is said, and they felt, both of them in this particular point, so I guess both of them saw the farmhouse, both of them felt a sense of oppression around them. They kept on going, and they also at this point ended up seeing two farmers in unusual attire and asked them where to go. They kept going as pointed by the farmers here, and they ended up in a wooden area, and along the way they ended up seeing yet more strange figures, such as what was described as two figures which were, why is this not working? There we go. Which were described as, such as they saw two figures which were described as looking like waxworks, as well as one in a big hat with smallpox scars, which makes me think of Witchfinder General from 1969, I want to say, one of my favourite horror movies, and kind of Vincent Price's attire in that movie. Amongst their journey, they also came across a pavilion and a bridge. See, I also want to do they also ended up seeing a pavilion and a bridge, and they visited the same area as per my notes a week later, but I believe there is a mistake within my notes here, and they actually visited it the next day, only to find that they could see none of what they witnessed yesterday. No pavilion or bridge, no farmhouse, or no strange figures. And research convinced that both of the ladies that the Petite Trianon house they were trying to visit was indeed haunted, and they theorized that and they kind of thought about it and kind of came to a possible realization that the last figure that they saw was indeed the ghost of Mary Antoinette, who is described as wearing a long green shawl and is reported to have communicated with these people in some shape or fashion. And upon anonymously publishing their encounter, which was, I think, the part I was confusing with my earlier bit, in that they did release they did revisit the area the next day, but they ended up revisiting the same area the next day, and only to find none of what they have. But then it was a whole week after that that they kind of got back together and thought about the events of what they had seen, in turn kind of coming together and putting pen to paper about the events of what they had just seen. And upon anonymously publishing their encounter, let's see, I think it's this, no, that's it. And upon anonymously publishing their encounter, it received a mixed response. Parapsychologists theorized a time slip, whereas others were just kind of not believing of their story overall. And till the day they died, the ladies themselves swore to their story being authentic. Overall, concluding this story as presented within Tops 5 as another kind of odd mystery, as is the first kind of story talked about within this kind of video here, as well as the last one, which is very mysterious and I believe culturally significant for a thing I'm going to detail. The finale of Top 5's video here is called The Curious Case of Robert Johnson, to abbreviate it slightly. Robert Johnson was an American blues musician. Robert Johnson was an American blues musician who only participated in 2 studio recordings in 1936, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame describes him as the first rock star, and his guitar style overall influenced many, such as Eric Clapton. And Robert Johnson unfortunately died very young at just 27, and with his burial site being unknown. And Top 5's video here just says that there is 3 reported locations with tombstones pertaining to be where Johnson himself is buried. So one other thing that I've just realised as kind of talking about this video and what have you, is that Robert Johnson here also falls into that kind of famous conspiracy theory kind of slash area people have had over the years about rock stars, a lot of rock stars seemingly coincidentally dying at just the age of 27, with 2 big examples that come to my head being Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain and the singer Amy Winehouse, as 2 examples that I can think of, but I am sure that there are more examples out there. His life overall was extremely mysterious, and it spawned many legends, such as achievement, spawned many myths and legends, with the one that is kind of discussed within Top's video here, is that he sold his soul to the devil for musical genius, which I am assuming is the kind of nexus point slash origin of where that kind of saying came about and what have you. He sold his soul to the devil for rock and roll, or something like that. There is some kind of saying out there with regards to music that pertains to that theoretical, as people have probably heard in the past. That's an idea. So I'm assuming, since this happened so early, I'm assuming that that is the kind of original instance of that. And a interesting kind of factorial about him selling his soul to the devil for musical genius is his song known as Crossroad Blues, which is reportedly about his encounter of when he met the devil. And I believe, partially going by this song, and in turn the story kind of created, I guess, in conjunction and in terms of what has overall been kind of mythologized about this rock star, is that he went down to some crossroad train tracks where he ended up meeting the devil, and he was promised rock and roll fame and glory in return for his soul. And in turn he ended up doing so, according to this particular legend, and that is what this overall story is about, as well as the song Crossroad Blues to an extent, although the actual location for the crossroads itself has been disputed over the years, in terms of where the event actually took place. So that's what it's going back for. So overall, a very unusual story, I would have said, and it's interesting for me in a paranormal sense and a bit of a rock music fan. Why am I not moving on my stream? Oh no, I am. It's an interesting story overall for me as a rock music fan, that there is, it would seem, a kind of story and basis to the whole kind of he sold his soul for rock and roll story, that there is that kind of saying within the world of music. It's very interesting that such a thing actually has an origin story and a actual kind of nexus point, I guess you could say. Very, very interesting stuff overall, I would have said. And overall, this video, as discussed and displayed by Tops5, is a very interesting and good video overall, I would have said, and is a really engrossing and interesting type of story to behold. I guess you could say. I don't think I'm going to survive that. Let's see. And a bucket for me. Do I not have a bucket for me? I do. Brilliant. But yeah, overall, very interesting and captivating video by Tops5, I would have said. I particularly liked the story of the Teke, as I discussed in this video, and as mentioned, it will make its way into a stream highlights at some point for on this particular channel. Take these as well. As stream highlights is something I would like to do at some point soon for on this particular channel, as that is kind of one thing I feel like needs to be done, and would be good a way of kind of bottling up kind of highlights, or what I feel are highlight clips for on this channel within the previous 10 streams, as I will set the kind of criteria for, so to speak. Let's return you. No, you're going to go in valuables. Okay. Because we're in spawn chunks here. How is this doing? Let's do you and you. So, arguably much more well known than Tops5s is the channel Nuke'sTop5s. And today I shall be discussing the kind of third video by them within my overall progression and what have you within my live streams. This particular video here being Top 5 Scary Videos to Give You Brown Pants, which is one of the not as good titles by Nuke'sTop5, which is something I like, a facet of his videos that I described within a previous live stream. I want to say stream 7 or 6, I believe I said described that in. But again, if you're seeing this clip in the highlights, then you have probably already had that kind of detail as given by me already. So despite the bad title to this video, the video itself is far from being a bad video by Nukes. In fact, I think it is a fantastic video by Nuke'sTop5. So the segments that I'm kind of clipping here for a future highlights and what have you is the first and arguably, and for me, best clip as present within this whole video, which is simply called Watcher. Did I bring that coal over? I think I did. See. No, I did not. I'm taking all of you. Go. Just chugging away nicely. It's fine. maybe take those just in case I decide I want acacias. So, Watcher is a very lengthy segment for the video. The video itself is just over, it's the overall video is 15 minutes long, but there is a kind of a minute of Nuke's outro. So the video itself, in terms of all of the paranormal content, as well as the little interlude Nuke does in terms of if you have encountered any paranormal things or know of a good video to be featured on the channel, blah blah blah, message me to feature it, or at my email address kind of thing he does, as well as that kind of being included within the whole kind of framework of the video. The main video itself is 14 minutes long, and this particular segment here takes up half of that. But it overall is a very fantastic segment overall, I would have said, for within Nuke's video here. So, as I mentioned, the section itself here is simply called Watcher. The video itself follows two BuzzFeed Unsolved hosts. One called Shane, who is a die-hard skeptic and firmly doesn't believe in the paranormal. That's just not seen you before. And then there is also Ryan, who is a firm believer in the paranormal and is also, interestingly enough, very easily scared, as displayed by a particular clip shown by Nuke within this sequence for the video. So the video itself is from a channel that these two have made, simply called Watcher, and the video focused on in this particular Nuke's Top 5 section is from a series of videos they do on this channel, simply called Ghost Files. And in this particular episode of their series, they are tackling the infamous Waverly Hills Sanatorium, which acted as a tuberculosis hospital back in the day, wherein an estimated 63,000 people died. It is a very famous haunted location in America, one of the most haunted in that country, and it has had quote-unquote terrifying activity been reported by many. So initially there isn't much happening as shown within Nuke's video. It kind of sets up the main core of supposed activity within this compartmentalization of the video from Ghost Files or follower here, and kind of set up on a more light-hearted note, where they reportedly hear the sound of kind of a crash, not necessarily a crash, but some kind of odd noise that they hear down one of the corridors, although they are relieved, that is Shane and Ryan, to find out that it was only their sound technician farting. Despite the section here opening up on very much a bit of a lighter moment for what is to come, despite this section opening up on a bit of a lighter moment in terms of the whole setup and what have you, the lightness of the whole presentation within Nuke's quartering of the video within Nuke's quartering of the video is, what was I saying? Although the kind of sectioning up as present within Nuke's video here, things only get creepier and scarier for, I guess, us viewers, but mainly Shane and Ryan. So the next bit of events, shall we say, for within the video as displayed by Nukes is the two together in a room with their technicians and what have your crew members. And within this particular one, it is Ryan that is basically doing an experiment to try and get activity from any would-be spirits there are in Waverly Hills, by getting them to hum in response to them. And the song that he and Shane sing is Yankee Doodle Dandy, or hum rather, a song that people that would have resided in Waverly Hills, now ghosts, would actually know. And on cue they do get a hum responding to them that they cannot explain, and they kind of chalk it up to possibly being a car at this particular event. However, they try the experiment again, asking any would-be entities to hum again, and hello and behold, there is a second piece of humming, although it is not quite on cue this time. This is something within that could very easily be faked. It's a possibility that it is a sound effect that has been played within this video. No question about it that is a possibility, and as you know, if you're watching this with no context, yes, I do look at these videos with a very surface level, entertained but critical kind of approach to the videos, if that kind of makes sense. And overall, I would have said that this particular moment, whereas creepy and certainly interesting, that it all lines up with Ryan's questions and what have you to the haunts, or the haunts within the building, that is the right word. It is possible that it all could be faked, and I could see this easily being something that they could easily stage within this video. So whereas off to a very good but creepy start, a very good and creepy start, I do feel that it is something that could easily be staged and or faked. However, the same can't be said in terms of the next one, which again could easily be faked, but is very much a lot trickier and less and much more believable, given the kind of circumstantial stuff that there is within this clip. So the overall investigation as present within the Ghost Files episode here is that each member goes off, I believe each member going off and doing their solo investigation within the building and what have you. And And Nuke'sTop5 focuses on Shane's part of this video. And it's Shane himself who, as I will reiterate here, which is important, is the skeptic amongst the two, Ryan and him. He is the skeptic amongst the lot, and I'm assuming because he's kind of doing it for the content and what have you, he is acting in a very, shall we say, provocative manner, if that is the correct wording, really kind of speaking and acting in a very theatrical way, almost comical in areas, kind of really saying things into the ether to try and rile up and provoke any would-be ghosts as a part of the investigation. And I'm assuming overall, and well, I would have said overall, as something to kind of spice up and add a bit more content to the content that he is making for this channel. And at one point during this particular instance of him wandering around and asking about asking for ghosts and what have you, at one point he hears some noises. He doesn't react to them at the time. He doesn't react to them at the time, but he, as relays to the others after kind of meeting up back with them, he describes it as being kind of like the sound of a person and what have you. And I'm assuming he didn't react to it at the time because he wanted to continue the kind of bit of content that he was producing for the video here, I am assuming. And he relays this to the others and is very kind of steadfast and adamant that he did hear something, despite him conflicting with Ryan, in that Ryan knows Shane as a very... knows Ryan... See, did I get the names right? Yes. And there's obviously a bit of conflict when he meets up here and what have you with the crew and relays what he has experienced, in that in that Ryan very much knows him as the kind of skeptical person of the two, and is very at first obviously very kind of distrustful of Shane, I would have said, in that Ryan doesn't really believe him because he knows his personality and his kind of attitudes towards the whole thing, and even says, if that isn't true, that is the best lie you have ever come up with, which is a real kind of interesting thing to say, and really kind of shows their friendship. Overall, for within this particular video, which is a really interesting kind of thing and slice to have within the video. So there's obviously that kind of unsettlement between the two, shall we say. within for kind of obvious reasons. But it ends up with Ryan saying, "Oh, that's really cool," to Shane at the end of it all. And the footage which is replayed as within the Ghost Files episode, and within the Ghost Files episode, and then the footage which is replayed and shown as within the Ghost Files video itself, does display, and as is highlighted by Nuke, displays this particular moment where Shane thought he did hear something happening around him. And at one particular point, or at this point where he thinks he hears something, the camera does capture an apparition behind him. It's very quick, and you have had to have seen it in kind of slowed down fashion to kind of properly see it and what have you within the clip present. But there is obviously something there in the background kind of watching Shane at this particular moment, and it is noted within the video that Shane does describe it as sounding like something that a person would have made. That. And overall, I would have said that this particular segment within Nuke's video is overall extremely well structured and well kind of presented to us viewers here. I would have said it is a very well structured and kind of realised compartmentalisation of highlights from within this particular investigation from these BuzzFeed members and this Ghost Files series, and for me personally is the kind of highlight of this video. Hello again, bot, trying to get me more viewers. I appreciate your effort though. See anything else to spout? No. But yes, is overall a very interesting segment within Nuke's video here, and is overall the kind of highlight for this clip, I would have said, or this particular Nuke's video overall, I would have said personally. And is very creepy in parts and very fantastic, and a really good example of a fantastic section from a Nuke's top 5 video, I would have said personally. So the nukes video then progresses onwards with the fourth segment within the video, with a section simply titled "Not Clowning Around." And this particular video overall was something I decided to discuss within this stream, as I found a old comment by myself from when this video was uploaded, and surprisingly it isn't pure cringe, and it apart from a couple bits to it, because it's impossible for me to make a comment that isn't cringy, basically saying that the Jester Doll clip within this video here is one of the scariest clips that Nukes has ever included in his videos. And here we are. Here is the clip in question. So the video overall here displays this particular section of Nuke's video here. Follows the main character of this particular Nuke's section here is a man by the name of Jacob, who has inherited their grandma's house from them, and as he kind of moves into it, he does get a, how is that 64 perfect? He gets a strange feeling that something doesn't particularly wants them there. And within the house is this highly unnerving Jester Doll that I'm assuming his grandma left behind at some point. And the first kind of, or the main bit of activity that is prevalent within the video itself here is Jacob is asleep one night with Jeffrey, which is the name he has given to the doll, resting up on the dresser that's in front of his bed, with Jeffrey directly looking at him. And Jeffrey himself is an extremely kind of creepy doll overall, I would have said, and I have no idea who in their right mind would have such a creepy and sinister thing looking at them on whilst they sleep. Very unnerving and highly unusual thing to have in your bedroom looking at you. And overall, I don't get why Jacob likes the doll. Personally, I find it to be an extremely creepy little thing as left behind by his grandma. So the main bit of activity, kind of getting back to what I was talking about here, is basically Jacob wakes up one night for the closet in front of him, which is to the left of the dresser, and in turn where Jeffrey the doll is sitting, it basically begins knocking, and he goes up to the closet door, opens it up, only to find nothing inside of it. And then he closes the door, and directly in front of him another door that I'm assuming is the door to his, like, the rest of the house, or possibly a bathroom or something like that, is starting to rattle and knock as well. And then that briefly happens, and then the closet door directly behind him knocks as well, for a second time, for some phantasmagorical, unexplained reason. and then unbeknownst to Jacob at the time, and he only realizes when he looks back at the footage of his camera from his phone, because he picked up his phone when he was woken up by the knocking to record what happened, or to document the event of what was happening to him. I'm assuming he had his phone beside him and on because of the uneasiness he felt within the house overall, and he was kind of ready to kind of document and to kind of record whatever may be thrown at him in terms of activity. See. So he doesn't realise this when recording. Initially, he only realises this when he looks back on his footage, and when he looks back on his footage, he is kind of terrified and horrified, as are we, to see that Jeffrey has turned his head facing Jacob here, which you can see as described and shown by Nuke in the video, which occurs as soon as it's going to be the wrong way of wording it. Jacob comes out of the closet, checking the noises that were happening within it. And overall, this is an extremely creepy clip overall, I would have said, and is a very highly unusual and extremely unnerving clip by Nuke overall, I would have said, for within this particular video as displayed here. And I can definitely see what I was thinking in terms of this being a really creepy clip overall, because overall I find the Jester doll within the overall progression of this, because I find the Jester doll overall to be really creepy and in itself highly unnerving. I don't know if that's like a subconscious fear I have. I don't know if I have any phobias or anything like that of Jester dolls. I just find the whole thing in of itself very creepy. Jeffrey the doll, that is, which I think makes this particular clip as present within Nuke's video here to be very unnerving overall, I would have said. Just getting up a kind of, guess you could say, secret document of a world plan that I have within this particular streaming series and Minecraft world. Let's see here, that's another sheep. Where am I? Then I'm over here. Okay, it's fine. So the video then progresses onwards from the creeps. That is Jeffrey the doll. To the third clip within Nuke's overall video, which is simply titled A Haunted Hello. So the channel that this clip comes from is called CVS Paranormal and is investigated, and this particular clip as displayed within Nuke's video here is a woman by the name of Christine who is investigating the train station, the going to take a quick break here and just go to the bathroom a moment. Just going to go back to the base and then AFK there for a moment whilst I kind of get my thoughts together for this last second here. So I'll do it up there. So the Nukes Top 5 video continues onwards after the creepy stuff with the Jester doll. That's a mistake there. This needs raised up by 1 block. I'm glad I've noticed that. Let's just do that to signify it. There we are. So the Nukes Top 5 video here continues onwards after the creepy stuff with Jeffrey the doll and Jacob's inheritance, with a clip that is entitled A Haunted Hello. So this clip in question is pertaining to an investigation from a channel by the name of CVS Paranormal, whom, with the investigator here being called Christine, is at a location known as the Pirates Graveyard. Can't remember exactly what country this is in. I think somewhere in South America. I could be wrong. It's something I didn't note down in my notes here for this particular string. But basically nobody else is here in this particular area of the location she is exploring here, and she hears and at one point when she is looking around at some gravestones and what have you, she hears something behind her, only for there to be a disembodied hello said to her. And because of the context of her hearing something behind her and then getting a hello spoken to her, she assumes that the hello is of human origin, turning around, admittedly surprised, as you would expect, to try and find the human source of it, only to be surprised by the fact that there isn't anybody there at all, and in fact is a complete phantom voice spoken. And very interesting and again creepy and convincing clip, I would have said overall. Upon rewatching this video for the stream, because I've seen it a couple times now for this stream, and then once in the past when I first watched it whenever the video came out in 22, I found this to be a very convincing and interesting video for the whole clip and kind of sequence that is this Nukes Top 5s video, I would have said, because it's a very believable and clip, I would have said overall, given Christine's surprise that you can hear in the clip. It seems like a very genuine piece of surprise, vocalized by her, I would have said, and there is nobody else in the area nearby that she is exploring as well, which kind of adds further kind of credence to this potentially being something not of this, well, something not human and something phantasmagorical, so to speak. Let's see here, do that one as well. So yeah, very interesting clip overall, I would have said, and it is a very kind of believable piece of supposed ghost activity, I would have said, as presented within this particular segment, as well as the overall kind of video by Nuke'sTop5s here, I would have said. Very interesting and very creepy, and the whole pirate's grave kind of location that there is prevalent in this particular section of the video overall, I find to be very kind of inspiring and creepy for this particular streaming series I'm doing, and for what plans I have for within this Minecraft world that I am creating on these streams here together in these live streams that I do. So very interesting kind of location for me and my interests, I would have said. I particularly like how it's all kind of like all of the graves and what have you are kind of decorated with pirate ephemera, kind of skulls and crossbones and things like that. It's a really interesting and unique graveyard site, I would have said, overall. And as I said, very inspirational to my overall kind of interests in the supernatural and paranormal, and for what plans I have within this particular sequence of a Minecraft world and series of streams, I would have said, and what I intend to build within this particular Minecraft world over time. So maybe this location, if I can find where it is going to be something that I will use as a source of inspiration for builds within this particular world. The penultimate clip that there is within this Nuke's Top 5 video here is called The Devil Down Below. This is another very short and kind of to the point clip by Nuke here. The plot is basically that there is a cursed river in Indonesia, and in regard to this supposedly cursed river, there is folklore of a creature that is said to reside in this river, and the locals say that it only surfaces at night and preys upon its victims at that particular instance of the daytime, or of the day cycle rather. So with that context and that kind of knowledge, I guess you could say under their belts, these friends kind of decide to go investigating this particular river, and in turn the attempt to capture this piece of folklore on video. And at one point during their adventure, let's put it like that, they end up discovering and what have you, they end up capturing on video this highly unnerving and extremely unusual instance of a kind of long-fingered, paled hand with very long fingernails, with extremely pale skin. Kind of imagine Gollum from Lord of the Rings, but his fingers are extremely long, with very long kind of fingernails. Picture something like that. Hand of that kind of nature shoots up out of the water and grabs a plastic water bottle that was floating in the river, and overall, whereas a creepy and unnerving clip overall, I would have said, it reminds me of my previously discussed video in terms of a Nuke's Top 5 discussed video, as within my live streams, being 5 scary ghost videos that will make you throw your phone. I have very similar thoughts here as to what I had to the segment called The Raid within that video, which again will be is going to be a stream highlights thing in the future. But basically, in summary, I kind of felt that whereas a very creepy and unnerving clip overall, yes, it was something that to me looks fake and what have you, and is something that I feel would easily fit into the framework of some kind of horror movie and what have you, and in of itself looks like something that is shot for and going to be featured within a horror movie. And in terms of, if I was to come across a movie with this particular scene within it, I feel like that would legitimately be a good kind of jump scare, I would have said, which is kind of a taboo thing to say, because I know jump scares are kind of frowned upon within the horror movie universe, but I feel like if this was prevalent within a particular horror movie, I would find it to be a very effective and creepy scare overall, I would have said personally. Let's see, how far away do I want this to be? I think over here would be a good one. Let's see. So overall, whereas I do feel like it would be good in a horror movie and what have you, I don't think that this overall bears any consequential relevance to evidence of the paranormal, I would have said. It's very good for a movie and what have you, for like a movie project, I would have said, and I would be satisfied if I was to find this within some kind of horror movie. But as I said, within it pertaining to evidence of the paranormal, I don't think it has any credence in that kind of aspect, I would have said, with regards to looking at it in that particular sense. This Nuke's Top 5s video ultimately concludes with another simple clip, simply titled Behind Your Back. The video itself and its kind of main character, I guess you could say, is somebody called Connor. They are returning from a outing of some description. They're returning home, and their Ring doorbell camera captures the highly perplexing and unusual event that there is prevalent within this Nuke's Top 5s video. They basically hear something behind him, only for him to see nothing upon turning around, but the doorbell camera itself captures this quick kind of phantom or shadow figure that is seen dashing from left to right in the background of the frame, with Connor here seeing nothing. Do that as well. It's okay, that's alright. And then first he sees absolutely nothing. So after this first kind of event and what have you, Connor doesn't see anything after hearing these noises, despite something being captured on the doorbell camera as stated. But the event basically occurs verbatim again, with Connor being closer to the door now, and for him to hear another noise behind him, only for him to turn around and see nothing, except this time the doorbell camera captures this supposed activity, only for it to showcase a shadow figure standing right behind Connor, unbeknownst to him and as unseen by him. Overall, this is a simple and effective, to the point kind of Nuke's top 5s video, I would have said, or with regards to this segment prevalent within. It's a very interesting and creepy segment overall, I would have said, and is a very good way and conclusion to this particular video and this live stream in regards to discussions, I would have said. A very creepy and unnerving clip, I would have said. And overall, this is a pretty fantastic Nuke's top 5s video, I would have said, personally. Very, very solid in terms of what scenes it's kind of featured and what have you. And although there are some shorter clips which could be described as filler and what have you, there are no kind of clips that I were not interested in, despite one of them being the Devil Down Below segment possibly being fake, or likely being a fake in my eyes anyway. There was no section within this particular video and what have you that I would consider not interesting, despite some of these clips bordering on being filler. And what I mean by that is, as I have detailed in the past, there are several clips and what have you from the past of in other Nuke's top 5 videos that I would describe as just being kind of filler clips. They're not really ones that kind of stick in your brain, or are ones that will be the most noteworthy or worthy of discussion within this particular kind of video by Nuke, but are still good clips. And some of these can be a bit of a gamble for me sometimes, like as discussed, I think the previous Nukes video I did, or the one before that, there were a couple clips in that were not of my interest overall, such as there was one about a supposed UFO captured on video, and whereas those are kind of all interesting, kind of curious kind of clips, I would have said, they're not what I go to and go for in regards to a Nuke's top 5s video. I'm much more interested in the ghost videos and what have you that would be displayed within a Nuke's video, I would have said. Although in of itself these clips aren't bad, they're just not ones that are ones that would stick out in my mind as being noteworthy or memorable clips for in the video overall, I would have said. For me, there wasn't any of that here in this particular video by Nukes. All of the clips and what have you really kind of struck out in my, or really kind of stick out in my mind, and all of them I find to be really kind of creepy or interesting, despite some, you know, potentially dubious origins of one clip being the Devil Down Below clip and segments of another. But overall, I would have said that none of these clips were not interesting. They were all interesting clips and very creepy and particularly captivating overall. I would have said they were all fantastic clips in their own rights, and this kind of equated and summarized overall to a pretty solid and fantastic Nukes Top 5s video. And as I mentioned, the kind of first clip within this overall video by Nuke was my particular favourite, being the BuzzFeed related one, which I have kind of clipped and will upload within some kind of highlights video at some point for on this channel. Just let this all load up before I conclude. Couple chunk errors there, that's okay. So overall, that concludes the 10th live stream that I have done to this channel, and in turn the 10th stream within this world. We made very good progress again today, I would have said. As I said at the start, this was the kind of first kind of clip or first live stream where I'm kind of branching out from base work here. There is a lot more work to do there at this particular base overall, but this is the kind of first stream of me kind of phasing down, or kind of ending the first phase of this kind of streaming world, I would have said. In that I'm now kind of branching out and will start be building a occult town within this kind of area here within the next few streams, or next few dozen streams or so, I would have said. And maybe I will pepper in work with the base here at some points as well. But yeah, very happy with how my progress has gone here today, and I'm happy with some of the discussions that I have made within this stream. So yeah, I don't think I've got really a lot more to say in regards to today and to conclude today's live stream. So like, favorite, comment, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this particular live stream to this channel, So like, favorite, comment, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream to this channel, and I will see you next time.